Good morning. It's Tom Jordan. Listen, don't tell me the border crisis wasn't purposeful or purposefully manufactured under the Joe Biden administration. Remember that like a week ago? Well, Biden said his hands were tied. It was all up to Congress to fix the issue, and they simply refused to do it. Well, look what has happened in just 1 week under President Donald Trump. The Del Rio sector alone, once overwhelmed with more than 4,000 daily crossings in late 2023. Guess how many they had on Sunday? And this is now becoming a daily event. 60. It went from 4,000 to 60. And then nationwide, like all over the country, there were just 600 on Sunday. That's down 50% since just last week, since Joe Biden left office. We're going to dive into that a bit more coming up here in the program today after my conversation with Congressman Tim Walberg. He'll be with me in just a few seconds because yesterday the House Republicans, they gathered at Trump National Doral in Miami for their annual Issues Conference, and it signals a clear alignment with President Trump as they set their agenda for the next couple of years. And Trump was there. He addressed the lawmakers. He emphasized unity and a bold push for sweeping policy changes through the reconciliation process. This is a very powerful tool that allows significant legislative victories with a simple majority in the Senate. So I'm going to speak with Tim Walberg about that in just a few moments. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he was there, of course. Senate Majority Leader John Thune steering efforts together to tackle these pressing priorities. Here are their priorities: border security, tax reforms, energy independence, national defense, managing the nation's debt, which is out of control. And with these razor-thin majorities right now in the House and in the Senate, Republicans got to do some work. They've got to navigate the internal divisions within the GOP, like the debate over SALT deductions and the divides there and the caps on SALT deductions, and while also preparing for this looming debt ceiling debate and this government shutdown deadline, which is coming up on March the 14th. Are they willing to go the distance to make sure they bring down the spending in this country? So the retreat there, you're seeing it, was billed as a strategic rally. The GOP is disciplined. They are capitalizing on the potential for reconciliation and to deliver the promises they've made to the American people. The stakes are high and the margin for error is slim, but the focus is clear. You've got to deliver the results. This is why you won your various and respective positions in office. All right, so just a few moments ago, I spoke with Congressman Tim Wahlberg directly from the great city of Miami, Florida. Congressman Tim Wahlberg, of course, from Michigan's 5th District, joining me now, the longest tenured member to Congress, by the way, from the great state of Michigan. So he's the dean. We affectionately call him the dean here at Tom Jordan Live. Good to see you, Congressman. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Well, great to be with you. I was never on the dean's list that I can remember, so it's good to be a dean finally.
You've earned your stripes. Took a while, but that's good. We're behind you fully in that. So you're still at the Doral in Miami. It was a big day yesterday. I watched part of it on the live stream, and it was there were so many good messages there. Your big takeaway from the gathering yesterday from the GOP, the House of Representatives, with Donald Trump speaking there as well.
Yeah, the big takeaway is we got to get it done. And that one big, beautiful bill needs to get completed. Reconciliation that will lead us to the opportunities to start cutting the spending, giving more opportunity for the economy to grow, letting America know that America, but also the world know that we're back and doing the right things again. So I think that was a takeaway. What the American people are feeling in many ways is what we're feeling in the room as members of Congress. Of course, we're also feeling the huge weight that we got to get it done, and we only have probably by the end of next week a one-vote majority.
Yeah, well, very slim margins, and that's what you just referred to there. And this is critical in order for things to get done. This agenda that you seem all united. I mean, it's a rarity now. You've got the House, you got the Senate, and you got the Oval Office in terms of the Republican Party. So reconciliation is going to be critical to doing this. Explain to our audience here, what reconciliation allows for. I mean, this process, it does give Republicans, if it goes through, an edge in enacting some necessary legislative policies. They need to get to the president's desk.
Yeah, it's a very complex one-time solution that you can only use um, very carefully. It can't be specifically for policy, though what we do does impact policy. Um, it has to be fairly central related, and it can only deal with taxation and spending. So in the Education Committee, we're looking at right now, I've offered, and I'll offer a little later this afternoon in our work sessions, I'll offer about $350 billion of reconciled cuts to programs. Uh, I mean, the biggest will come in dealing with the student loan program, which is an absolute failure right now. That could bring us about 210 um, $1 billion of savings by changing the approach by which we do it now and saving the taxpayer those dollars. And I think still keeping the system alive for students to have the potential of loans, but for the proper programs. So as it touches programs and policy, the main purpose that the parliamentarian of the Senate will look at, does it fit in the space of direct spending and mandatory spending, and also in the taxation area?
When you look at issues like, the Inflation Reduction Act and whatever work you can do with that, would that fall under reconciliation? Because we have what, $400 billion going to renewable energy companies and subsidies and that nature. That's a lot of money that can be used elsewhere. Would that fall under reconciliation?
Parts of that would, and that would be in the energy and commerce space. Brett Guthrie, who's the chairman there, will be presenting as well. He's looking at potentially, I believe the last number is $1.7 trillion of reconcilable funds. My 350 billion falls about third in the committee structure of the amount of reconcilable dollars that we go after. But yeah, that will have potential, but only portions of it. And that's where you have to be very, very careful that you're putting what's doable, what
Mm.
fits as you might believe within the confines of what the parliamentarian will say. And again, that's the Senate. And what's frustrating for us, it we have no control over that parliamentarian, and what he
Yeah.
or she says at that moment in time can
Hmm.
have a big impact. We're hoping that the leader of the Senate will be very explicit with the parliamentarian that we want to get things done and don't unnecessarily stand in our way.
Right, and we got a March 14th deadline to get this done. Is there enough unity to do whatever it takes when it comes to potentially a government shutdown? And that might mean that the Republicans are going to be blamed for shutting down the government. But of course, that's happened many times in the past, and everything seemed to work out okay. Is there more, I think, of a willingness now, that kind of an attitude amongst the GOP members of the House to
Well,
potentially go to that length?
that remains to be seen. I hope it is. I know President Trump has a bully pulpit and a back room that could
Yeah.
be used, and hopefully will be. I mean, as last night he encouraged us that we have to work together. As he turned to our speaker and said, "This guy only has a one vote margin." He says, "After April, we'll have you back to a 3 vote margin,
Yeah.
and from following that, we'll have a 4 vote. But for right now, we've got to work together." And he pointed out the Democrats, like lemmings, always seem to join together. Republicans are going to have to do this now for the good of the country. And as I tell my constituents, Tom, who are excited about Trump being in office, I told them just last week, in fact, during the inaugural, he only has two years. And they said, "Why? What are you saying?" I
Hmm.
said, "He's elected for 4, but if he doesn't have the majority in both houses,
Mhm.
the final 2 years will simply be impeachment, 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 like it was
Yes.
before."
Yeah.
So we have to do what's necessary to hang together, get things done, and we need people to be out and vote as if it was this election again, and get it done.
Yeah, you're right, because the last time the GOP had all three, things didn't go so well. And I'm stunned. The Affordable Care Act was a big issue that didn't get enough unity within the Republican House and Senate to do away with it. And I've just saw some premiums the other day, a direct result of Obamacare. And for some people, it's $4,000 a month plus like an $8,000 deductible. I mean, who can afford that? Unless they're part of a group plan, and then you got to have a nice job in order to get that. So I hope the unity is there. I want to talk about this because it's remarkable what Donald Trump has been able to do, knowing that he has a House, knowing that he has a Senate, but just with the executive orders that he's put through. And you look at the border crossings Sunday, it's down 50%. Donald Trump's first week from just a week prior when Joe Biden was in office. You look at the Del Rio sector, it's down. I think they had like 60 crossings in one day when it used to be, I think, 1,500 in that particular region in a day under Joe Biden. So things are working, and they seem to be working quickly. That's got to be pleasing to you and to your colleagues in the House.
Oh, absolutely. And there are huge areas now that used to be filled with people that aren't now. I don't think the Customs and Border Patrol agents are getting lonely. They still have their work to do, but it is their work that they were trained to do. And when Trump, before he finished the back nine the other day, he had Colombia saying, "Okay,
Hmm.
we will take the plane loads," and that came from him threatening a tariff. So
Yes.
I think the world knows that there is a sheriff in town again, and it's a compassionate, sensitive, caring sheriff, but also a strong sheriff that says, "We're going to work with you. You work with your own countries. We don't hold that against you, but you are not going to take advantage of us."
It's pretty remarkable what just happened. I mean, that was such a flag kind of in the ground type of moment when you're dealing with Donald Trump and the president of Colombia. Now, the president of Colombia is offering his plane in order to receive these illegal immigrants back into his country. It's phenomenal. I think the world is taking note. I know you got to run here, so I got to let you go. It's beautiful where you are. I know you're still down at the Doral in Miami, and I wish we could all be there with you because it's a little bit chilly up here in a great state of Michigan. Tax reform, how likely is the tax extensions, even further tax cuts? How likely is that to be pushed through and sent to the Oval Office?
Well, I think it's very likely that we're going to get it done. Why? Because President Trump wants it done.
Yeah,
And if he wants it done, he's going to get it done. And he pushed that last night of what he wants to do for the ordinary worker, the ordinary citizen needs to have these permanents. And businesses, when they succeed, employees will succeed. So it's a very simple formula he has. And I think if we can get off our own high horses and say
yeah,
it's not going to be perfect in our own minds, but it'll work for the country, and we
yeah.
can, we can rebuild for the future.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Donald Trump, you mentioned he has a back room, but he's also got a woodshed too. So maybe some way we'll get this to work. So much appreciate your
Yeah,
time. Congressman Tim Wahlberg from Michigan's 5th District. So good to see you. Thank you so much.
great to be with you. Have a good day.
Yeah, he's a good guy out there, busy too. He led a Bible study before that interview this morning with I think the whoever wanted to come from the House GOP caucus there, and focused on Jeremiah 15. And it was a good message. He shared that a bit with me before our conversation. Congressman Tim Wahlberg joining me this morning. Now that was from Miami. Also down there in Miami, of course, Congresswoman Lisa McClain. She was the conference chair for yesterday, also from the great state of Michigan. She kicked off the event yesterday with these words. Take a look.
We are here to celebrate the Republican trifecta that allows us to govern. The American people gave us a mandate to deliver common sense solutions and end Democrats' distorted reality. We are also here to celebrate the fact that Donald Trump is president of these United States of America. Finally, we have a commander-in-chief we can trust, who doesn't need to go to sleep at 5 p.m., and a president who will put America first. Just yesterday, we saw this example of the return of American exceptionalism right on stage. President Trump hadn't even finished the front nine before he successfully forced the Colombian president to take their illegal immigrants back. The days of America being walked all over are long gone, thanks to President Trump and all of you. The past month has been filled with early successes. We've elected Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, on the first round, I might add. We sent Mike Collins, where are you, Mike? We sent Mike Collins' bill, the Lankin-Riley Act, to the president's desk to be signed into law. Congratulations, Mike. Just think, the very first bill that we are sending to the president's desk is a bill about illegal immigration that we all campaigned on. Additionally, we have passed Greg Stubbe's bill to protect women in girls' sports. Thank you, Greg. Where are you, Greg? Nancy Mace put a bill on the floor, and we passed a bill to deport violent illegals. Bruce Westerman's bill to fix our forests. Thank you, Bruce. And Ann Wagner's bill to save babies born alive. We are keeping our promises and delivering results. And there are more wins on the horizon. But we must stick together for the American people. After all, why should anyone block or be opposed to President Trump's agenda or the 77 million Americans that gave us this opportunity to serve? We all want the same outcome: lower costs, a secure border, energy independence, and making our country respected again. That's why we're here this week, to begin drafting the blueprint for that one big, beautiful bill. Now, usually this retreat is held a little bit later in the year, but there's no time to waste. Results are what's matter. And delivering that result is how we keep our promise and how we keep our majority. So before we kick things off, let me run through the top line agenda real quick. At the retreat, we will hear from our Commander-in-Chief very soon. Our political leaders, Chair Richard Hudson, Chris Winkleman with the Congressional Leadership Fund, and RNC Chairman Michael Whatley. They'll be giving us a post-mortem, so to speak, so that we can digest what we did right, what worked, and what we can improve upon. And we're also going to hear from everyone's favorite pollster, Kellyanne Conway. Voters' minds are always changing, and she has a fresh perspective with fresh data and insight ready to shape our messaging. That is going to be key. And on that bill, our committee chairman will provide the latest on their work. Really, it's time to put the pen to the paper. And of course, America's vice president will stop by to speak to all of us. This, of course, will be the first time of many that we'll have heard from him since the inauguration, but I can assure you it won't be the last. I expect we will be in constant communication as we work together to amplify our message and our work together. Now, as conference chairwoman, I'm committed to amplifying all of your voices and ideas, and that includes while we are here in Miami. My team is here to help connect you with media, to help spread your message, to let you tell your story. So we'll be doing side-by-side interviews throughout the week. My team has already reached out and been working with many of you on op-eds and statements. Many of you have attended our inauguration Media Row Day, and I'm happy to discuss any ideas that you may have or how we can amplify your voice better. Remember, we have the right message, and our message is a winning message. The fact is, the House is leading the way. President Trump's legislative agenda starts with us in this room. So let's continue to lead. Let's continue to lead in our messaging. Let's continue to lead in our legislating. It is what we do. The American people are looking to you and us as Republicans, and they are relying on the People's House to deliver. And we won't let them down, because a promise made is a promise kept.
And it does appear they're keeping their promises because they're moving quickly. Donald Trump has been keeping his promises. Whether you like what he's promised to do or not, he's certainly doing what he said he would during his campaign. It's a big deal yesterday with Donald Trump there, a big influence as the unifier behind the Republican Party. And that's what they've got to do if they're going to get reconciliation through. So his ability, Donald Trump's, to rally the party around shared goals. What are their shared goals? Pretty much everyone in the GOP pretty much shares. Maybe not so much a Murkowski type, but most of them do. You talk about border security, fiscal responsibility, tax reform is a big deal. Keeping lawmakers focused and unified on those core issues. Donald Trump's track record of prioritizing action over bureaucracy is pretty good. Reconciliation, this is the deal. It's a crucial legislative tool. I mean, the reconciliation process gives Republicans a rare opportunity to bypass Senate gridlock and deliver meaningful reforms, which they want to do. But there is some small disagreements on certain issues, and that might affect this. So with that tool, the GOP can enact tax cuts. It's amazing people are against this, or they frame them in such a way that somehow it only benefits the rich, when that is not the case. I benefit. I'm not rich. I think Cameron Harris is not rich, and I think he benefits from tax cuts too. I think everybody does. The latest numbers I checked. Energy policies. This is huge under Donald Trump. It's huge. They've got to get behind this. Spending reforms that resonate with American voters without being stalled by partisan games. They've got to get all of this through. And fiscal responsibility, dealing with a debt ceiling. All of these things will be allowed to happen if reconciliation is passed. The reinstated debt ceiling is a moment for truth for lawmakers. They did that. March 14th now is the next deadline. Are they going to do it again, or are they going to be for real this time around? And Republicans, they've got to leverage this opportunity that they've been given once again. It's a rare one, to demand spending cuts, fiscal reforms that address the spiraling debt in the United States of America. Letting Democrats frame this as a crisis instead of an opportunity for accountability would squander the chance to show leadership on economic discipline. Lead the way. You can now. The stakes of a government shutdown, that March 14th deadline. Okay, so if it happens, it's happened many times in the past. The country would fare just fine. In fact, I would argue even better. Newt Gingrich allowed these things to go through, and that's how he got fiscal discipline in the House of Representatives and got Bill Clinton to join with him in the 90s, because he allowed it to get to that point where they were willing to shut down the government to take care of their fiscal responsibilities in the House. So we're going to bring up the full screen here. So anyway, so the March 14th deadline, that's pretty important. We got to make sure that we get there. But if we don't, you do what you do. Prioritize the fiscal discipline there, framing their position as a fight for the taxpayer. They can expose the opposing party's disregard for responsible governance in the House, the Senate, and I hope they do that. And securing the border, of course, isn't just about immigration either, right? It is about that, but it's also about safeguarding sovereignty. It's about economic stability. It's about public safety. And Republicans, they've got to position themselves as the only party serious about addressing the chaos at the border. I'm amazed at the comments I've seen from people I still love, they're still dear to me, but on like Facebook and these social media outlets, how they were so supportive of that Episcopalian female bishop that basically chastised Donald Trump at that prayer service about illegal immigration, and that he better show essentially mercy to them, and that's what God wants. I'm like, yeah, he is showing mercy. Absolutely. And I think mercy and grace absolutely are part of this, but you can't reward illegal behavior that hurts the American people. What about that side of the argument? I mean, it's devastating to them, and we know for certain this is why we have borders, that they protect the citizens of any given country. That's why you have borders. And if you don't have them, the biblical principle is that you tear down the borders, you're going to have people coming in that are going to harm you and are going to lead you astray and are going to, this is, read the Bible. And I've heard many people say, the biblical thing to do is just have open borders, let them all come in. I'm like, no, that's not really the case. So I'm surprised at the amount of pushback against Donald Trump's. This is something that people used to agree upon until more Marxist ideology, spurred on by the funding of George Soros, has been allowed to permeate this country. Independence for energy independence is going to be a big deal as well. It does equal national security also. Energy policy isn't just about economics. It is about that, but it's also about protecting America's global standing. And by investing in domestic energy production, Republicans can reduce our country's reliance on hostile foreign powers and lower cost for families like yours and mine. That's the dual benefit of economic and national security. Should be a cornerstone of the GOP messaging. So it was, and it was good. So I want to get to a few comments before I get to some headlines here. I know Cameron Harris is watching those, and there's been a number of them this morning. So appreciate your partnership in this and your dialogue with me. So we'll start with the first one here. And the first one is going to be, it's going to be a surprise for all of us. Vaughn Westerby is back. Hey, Vaughn, thanks for chiming in. We don't need a Paul Ryan stunt in the House. America first. Build that big, beautiful wall and cut spending. Yeah, I agree with you, Vaughn. We don't need the Paul Ryan, the pushback, and there was the 2 years from 2017 and 2018 were wasted opportunities in that first term of the Donald Trump presidency, because they didn't get a lot done. There was too much infighting. And so that needs to be done away with. And I do sense that there is enough support now and enough leverage to bring those maybe somewhat dissenting voices within the GOP in line with at least what they can agree on. And if you put that in reconciliation, we can do a lot to bring down the cost of living in this country and reduce the amount of federal spending. So, yeah, let's get them all together. Build the border wall. It needs to be done. We can allow people into this country like we always have, merciful, gracious, but legal immigration into the United States that benefits the citizens here in the U.S. All right, let's bring up another comment here. It is from Harry Sekelian. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Harry. After watching your interview with the dean, sounds like we, as citizens, we all need to learn more about the parliamentarian and how this process works. Thanks, Harry Sekelian. Yeah, the parliamentarian basically decides the rules, and they make sure, well, they implement the rules, and they make sure that the bills that come through that are drawn up and they pass the various committees and they're brought to the floor, they've got to fall within the rules. And with the reconciliation, the rules are very, very strict. You can only have a reconciliation bill that deals specifically with the economics of the country, and that includes taxes. Anything out of that, they won't allow that through. So they're trying to parse this thing to make sure that everything in there is related to finance, to the economy, and to taxes. Anything beyond that won't be allowed, and that could kill the bill before it ever comes to a vote. So the parliamentarian is going to be a crucial step into that. Sorry, I lost my face here on the screen here. But anyway, I think we've got, I'll tell you what, let's go to some... well, I'll just say a few more things about that. The purpose and the importance of the rules of Congress and the House and the Senate. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. When Congressman Tim Wahlberg joined me, and he explained that, but just gave a real kind of a 30,000-foot view of what goes on behind the scenes and how the sausage is made, putting together a bill like this. It takes hours and hours and hours of work, and, the staff behind each member of Congress is quite large to make sure that the wording is correct. You got experts, you got attorneys looking at these, and policy wonks analyzing everything, every word that goes in to make sure it's going to fit and it's not going to be kicked back, because if that happens, it delays the process and the time is short for these things to go through. You got the March 14th deadline, but you've also got something's got to happen within the next couple of weeks to get this through the House and then kick it over to the Senate and then eventually get it over to the president's desk. So hopefully sooner rather than later, and they all agree in the House on reconciliation. All right, let's bring up another one here, another comment. It's from Da, 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 da. We're all going to be surprised here who it is. It's the engineer. The engineer is back. That was a surprise. Good to see you, buddy. Top threats and priorities under Biden: climate change, trans rights, white supremacy, Trump, stop nuclear war, govern overspending, secure borders, say goodbye to fantasy land, and hello to reality. Yeah. Lisa McLean said something similar. Like she said something about we got to just get away with this circus that, the Democratic Party has led us all into, this unrealistic view of the world. We're back now to common sense and now back down to reality. The threats that have been touted is so dangerous to the country aren't really the ones that truly exist. I mean, I don't know how many times Biden got up there and said one of the greatest threats to this country are Republicans, and how the media cannot see that as just a partisan jab in order to, it's propaganda. And propaganda is a tool that's used by pretty much almost everybody, whether it's a politician or the media now is involved in this very much. So it kind of always has been. I mean, you look at the past several decades even, but it really has reared the media has its ugly propagandish head in recent years. It's become more obvious, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here, than it used to be. But it's always been there. But this is just simply not true. We know that the gravest threats to this country is terrorism, real terrorism from the Middle East, and foreign enemies like China. That is what the data says. That's what the investigators say. That's what the CIA knows is the case, and the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. But the partisans come out and say, actually, no, it's my political opponents. That is the biggest threat to the United States, and all the issues that they represent. You brought up a number of them. Thank you so much. Let's bring up another comment here, and then we'll get to some of our headlines here. Jim Chikowski. Hey, Jim. Good to see you again. The Republican Party has a big challenge dealing with rhinos. I hope they stick together for the betterment of the country and back President Trump. That has been a big issue. That was the issue 2017 and 2018. The Republicans and name-only types, the ones who say that they're fiscally conservative, but they're really not because they want to keep spending, the ones who acquiesce to all these radical far-left policies, the ones who support government-provided health care. They eventually want a single-payer system, which will do horrible things. It'll destroy the health care in this country. And I was serious about what Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, has done to health care. It has only ramped up the cost to such a degree that most families can never afford it. But that's the reality of it now. And it's, again, exactly what they misname it. So let's I'll tell you what, we're having another issue with our camera here. We apologize for this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to start reading some headlines here because I want to tell you what's going on. This was the real issue with illegal immigration and what's been happening just in the past week. It's a massive drop in the illegal numbers here. Border crossings have been plummeting in the first week of Donald Trump's return. Illegal crossings at the United States-Mexico border have nosedived in the last week and one day. Just 1 week into President Donald Trump's second term, improving his hardline promises weren't just talk. This past Sunday, fewer than 600 illegal entries were recorded across the country at all the border entry points and elsewhere. 600 illegal entries. That is down more than 50%. That's just from the chaotic final days of the Biden administration. It's far more than that in terms of how much it is down since 2023 and the early part of 2024. But at the final week of Joe Biden's presidency, the daily numbers were anywhere between 1,200 and 1,400 daily coming across, and that was much lower. But that's still a crisis. It was under Barack Obama that I think, director of Homeland Security or the borders are, I forget his name, said that if we ever got to 1,000 a day, that would be a national crisis. Well, it was down Joe Biden's last week to about 1,200 to 1,400 a day. That is still a crisis. But it was far more than that. I mean, it was like, 4 or 5, 6, sometimes I think 10,000 under Joe Biden. They just opened the doors. Now down to 600 on Sunday. And the Del Rio sector once was overwhelmed with 4,000 daily crossings. The Del Rio sector alone had 4,000 a day in late 2023. On Sunday, they had 60 crossings. 60 compared to 4,000 in a day. Why is that the case? There's no question it's Donald Trump's swift action. Joe Biden said he couldn't do anything about it. That was not true. Donald Trump declared a national emergency at the border during his inauguration, and that set the tone that all illegal entries will immediately be stopped. And he vowed, and early numbers suggest that he is delivering. And this dramatic decline comes amid Donald Trump's success in pressuring Colombia to cooperate on deportation flights. His peace through strength mentality, that approach. And Border Patrol agents said they're now bolstered by the troop deployments down there, and they're seeing immediate results in restoring order at the border. That's fantastic news. Very, very good to see that as well. All right, just wanted to update you there. I think we have another comment, and then we'll say so long for today. Cameron Harris, yes, we do. Oh, it's Arlene is back. Arlene Pearson, good to see you, Arlene. Let's hope the Republicans will unite and shut the government down if needed. As a taxpayer, it's so disheartening to see Congress, both parties, but Democrats, far worse, continue to spend without any fiscal responsibility or concern for regular taxpayers. More concern by Democrats for illegals than U.S. citizens. Yeah, that's true. And both parties playing Santa to their constituents for re-election. Santa Claus by giving gifts using taxpayer money. Arlene, spot on again, as always. Very well thought out comment today. Thank you so much for that. It is refreshing to see, and it really comes down. I know it seems hard. It is hard to pull things away from people when they're so accustomed to receiving those free goodies. That's difficult, but that is what discipline is. That's a part of fiscal discipline. And that's what the Republicans need to show here. And what's ultimately best for their constituents in the long term, the taxpayers that, support them in their various campaigns. You got to stick to it. So I do hope that they unite around this, around Donald Trump. And I think that they realize now that they kind of have to, because this old way of doing things hasn't worked. And you got to get rid of the uniparty mentality. And Republicans need to truly act like the Republicans of old, the conservatives, not the extremists, the conservatives, and to oppose the extremists, even some of them in their own party, but definitely the majority of extremists in the Democratic Party. Arlene, thank you so much. Appreciate it as always. Thank you for watching today. We'll be back tomorrow again for another great program, 9 a.m. Eastern, streaming live here at Tom Jordan Live. We're on Facebook, X, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. God bless you. We'll see you next time.